Hi, this is Emily Burmis, and this is 120 Seconds to Better Leadership. So I want to flip the script just a little bit today and do a little bit of crowdsourcing, and here's why. So I've been coaching or consulting at least for 20 years, and I don't get stumped that often, which is part of why I love my job. There's lots of hard problems to solve, but I get to work with really smart clients, and so usually between the two of us, I feel like we can come up with some pretty creative answers to their problems. And this one's one session, one of the first I can remember, where at the end I'm like, I've got nothing else for you to think about that you haven't tried. So here's the situation, and here's where I would love to do some crowdsourcing. Leading people who act out of self-interest is very difficult. People that tend to always think about, hey, I want this promotion, I want that job, I want that office, I want to, collaborate with that person. People are just constantly asking for more for themselves. Can be pretty exhausting for their managers. And in this particular situation, there are a few things that I ask about when I'm asking about someone that's behaving this way. One thing is, have they gotten the feedback? Because in my experience, 9 times out of 10, they've gotten 4% of the feedback, but not 10%. And so that's usually where I'll start with clients, is we need to think about what information they've gotten from you. Do they even know this? Are they aware? Is this a blind spot, right? And in this case, I know this leader quite well. There's zero chance she has not gotten 100% of the feedback. Wonderful leader, super great people guy, but very, very direct, which is my favorite. I also ask about sort of relative age of the person that we're talking about. So if you're talking about a 23-year-old and they're fresh out of college, or they're 25 and they just got their MBA and they're thinking they're on fire and they want it all, right? You would expect some of that immature thinking that often looks like acting out of self-interest, but it's because they're young and they just need to calibrate to expectations of other people in the corporation. So that can be a maturity issue. I take that into account. In this case, we're talking about someone who's nearly 40. That to me is more of a red flag than someone that's just young and perhaps still immature. So that wasn't the problem either. She wasn't young. So in this case, the way that self-interest showed up is that she was not a good people leader. So and her performance has been sort of hit or miss, but she's not a good people leader. And even though her people were underperforming, and even though she was on a performance improvement plan, she was still asking for a promotion that she wasn't eligible for. And it was going to be several years until she was. So a bit of a perception gap there, right, too? And so she did, what has worked with this individual is, by putting more pressure because of the feedback on the performance of her direct reports, she has engaged much more so as a people leader. But then when her people start to improve, the first thing she does is use that as evidence of why she should get promoted. So there's still a real disconnect there in terms of, how she sees herself in this organization. And so, my clients, for the most part, have to come up with their own solutions and ideas. But of course, after 20 years, I've seen some other people's good ideas, so I always share those as well. And we crossed off all the categories under carrots and sticks. Has she been asked to focus on shared objectives? Yes. Has she been given visibility opportunities? These are all the carrots, right? Yes, she's been given visibility opportunities. Is she being recognized for improvement? Yes. This guy's very good at that. The sticks are the performance improvement plan. This stick is also the feedback, which I know has been quite direct. And the other stick is, no, she's not been promoted. They've not really resorted to anything else yet. And I don't think that's warranted. But we went through all the carrots and sticks that I could think of, all the ones that he could. This is not exhaustive, but a summary of what we talked about. And he's like, yeah, none of that's worked. And it's been years. And here's the other thing that is important, I think, to assess about these situations. I asked the questions, how much of her energy or time is she taking relative to her peers? And he said, thank goodness her peers are really strong. She's getting 10 times more at least than anyone else on my team. And he's got a large team. So good thing they're not all like that. So the problem is she's taking an inordinate amount of energy, time, and space out of the organization, and she's an okay performer. She's improving on people leadership, but at the end of the day, she's still always acting in self-interest to the extent that we can see it. So my curiosity would be, what didn't we come up with? What have you used in other situations? I know for me, I've had people that are this way on my team, and how I handle it depends a lot on how talented they are. If they're brilliant, I'll tolerate a lot more of that than if they're marginal. If they're marginal, they're never going to make it. Sometimes I'm willing to trade energy for brilliance. I just am. But I'm curious for you what you have seen work, what you've seen not work, and what ideas you have. And you can either hit reply to the email if you're seeing this on our email list. If you're not on our email list, get on it. If you're seeing it on LinkedIn, I would love for you to comment. I want to hear what ideas you have or stories about situations where you were trying very hard to lead someone that only seemed to think about themselves.